Hello again, Lockpicking Paul here, and what I've got tonight is a bit interesting and a bit of history. This is a super bright, or an SB lock, dates to sort of the 1970s, maybe early 80s. It's Far Eastern, but it's good quality. So it's not the kind of junk you often find. It's a bit different. It's a pump lock, so what you've got is a bit like a tubular lock, except the pins, instead of pushing down, they come in from the side. And a whole bunch of these came up on eBay recently. So someone's found a container load, I think, and they're selling them off. So if you're quick, go off to eBay. You can probably get the entire mortise pack for under £20, and you'll get an interior and an exterior lock, and they're different, which is what makes it really interesting. This is the key to them. You get 3 keys with these. You'll notice I only have 2 here, and there's a reason for that. So there's your key, and if you look at the key, you can see how you're going to tension it. There is a cutout on the base of the key, and that corresponds to a screw at the base of the lock, and that slots over that screw, and that's what drives the lock open. And you can make a tensioner to encompass that screw and put tension on the core. So first things first, little explanation about how these work, and just push this in all the way to the back. There you go, turns fine. The interior mortise has one row of 5 pins and nothing more, so it's like a cut down version of the exterior lock. The exterior lock has 3 rows, 3 rings if you like, of pins, totaling 13 pins in the exterior, and they're quite tricky. I'm going to see if I can show you this on camera. Don't know if you can see. You can see the first row of 5 pins quite easily. Let me turn the light on the camera itself. Oh no, that won't work on ultra wide. And now I can't change the width. But there is, I think you can just about make it out, but underneath that first row is a second row of pins, but they're offset. So the gaps between the pins are taken up with a second row down. And then underneath that is another row of pins. There literally is nowhere to get a pick in here. It's hard enough getting a tensioner in. But once the tensioner's in, getting a pick in this particular lock is quite difficult. So how are we going to pick this? Well, tonight we're not going to pick this one because I haven't yet solved that, and I don't know anyone else who has solved this one. There are a couple of videos by Bosnian Bill and by LPL. Bosnian Bill did a super bright lock. He did the padlock, and that has 3 rows of pins as well. But those 3 rows of pins were all neatly stacked on top of each other in columns. And because of that, you could get a pick down the side of those pins, which would make it a bit easier. LPL picked something that looked very similar, but it was called a silver bird. So it might have been a rip-off. Interesting that it had the name SB Silver Bird, but it wasn't a super bright. He raked that one, and it opened relatively easily. I've tried raking both of these, and I can't get anywhere with raking. Single pin picking does open this one, and that's one we're going to pick in a minute. And this video is largely about A, picking this lock, and B, solving the tensioning problem, because these are actually tricky to tension, and quite a lot of work is involved in getting a tensioner to work in these. So how did I do the tensioning? This is a cut down key. In fact, if I turn it around this way, you can see the fact that it is the key. So you have to mark out what bits you don't need and then grind away all the stuff you don't need. Quite a lot of work went into making this tensioner, and I snapped the first one I made because this brass is too brittle. I ended up silver soldering a stainless wire on the end of it, and that actually works considerably better. But what you do want to leave, obviously, the groove in for the tensioning, and you do want to chamfer the top of the key that you've cut off. And the reason for that is if you push this in the lock, you've got to push all the pins out of the way. So it goes in like this, all the way to the back. But if you haven't chamfered that top edge, then getting this out of the lock again is really hard. And the first time I did it, I didn't do that, and I ended up having to effectively pick it to depress all of the pins so I could lift it back out of the lock again. Now this works equally well in the very deep lock. So this goes all the way back in here. That works fine. Great. Tensions doesn't bind on any of the pins. Works beautifully. Problem is I just can't get a pick in there between those pins and miss the second ring. So haven't yet solved that. I did see Nova Bird mentioned that this might be a candidate for impressioning, and that is a valid thought. I do think that might work. It'll be a bit of a race, I think, to see with all these onto the second-hand market who gets this one open first, because I think it's a worthy challenge. Right, there is another way to tension it. It uses exactly the same sort of mechanism, but a completely different shaped tensioner. I also made this, and it's just a piece of 1.6mm stainless spring wire, and it slots into pretty much the same place between the top two pins and braces sort of against the lock body and that sort of top screw. In fact, it goes better this way around. That's right. That's right. It goes in better like that. Now the angle, you'll see this curves this way a little bit. That angle and the size of that return are absolutely critical to avoid it binding on any of the pins in the lock. And if it does that, it just won't open. Trial and error and a pair of pliers really are the only way to make a tensioner that looks like this. The big problem with this tensioner is that it picks in one direction easily. It doesn't pick in the other direction easily, so just bear that in mind. The other tensioner, this one, will pick in either direction and no trouble at all, but it's a lot of work to make it. So anyway, this is part one, hopefully, of a two-part video. Like I said, haven't managed to do this one yet, but can pick this. The pins do act like they're tapered, and that adds to the pain. And if they are tapered, then this thing is going to be a nightmare. But this takes, for only 5 pins, way longer at 3 or 4 minutes than really it should do for a small pin count like that. So yeah, tricky little thing. So up now, here's a picking video, and hopefully I'll see you in a part 2 vid sometime soon. Cheers. Okay, so quite a lot of faff to set this up for filming. I've got 2 lights on it at the moment. There's a third, and now you can see some pins. You may also see I've got an overhead light which will swing back and forth. That just allows me to reflect the light off the pins from a different angle. And it does make life picking this quite a lot easier to be able to do that. Right, tensioned up, and let's get a binder. Not sure about that one. Definitely not that one. Initially it binds incredibly tightly, but you need that to tension because it just doesn't seem to make progress through the pins without it. It's not ready. No. Feel a bit of core movement then, and yeah, that pin's binding now. I'm not sure if these are tapered or not, but you sure act like they are. can't see that. Let's have a... Yeah, multiple touches on the same pin. Every time I pick this, I think it's got to be tapered. Right, got a bit of core movement. I think we're close. At least I hope we are. There we go. That's open. Give a light back. So that's actually, you know, quite a lot of hard work for just 5 pins. So you can imagine that the 13-pin exterior mortise is going to be quite a tricky little pick. So there you go. That is the interior mortise of a Super Bright. And yeah, tricky little blighter. Hope you enjoyed that. Part 2, hopefully, not too far away. Cheers.